Senator Menendez, we're going to do the teacup now, so don't leave. Senator Perry, you're recognized on committee substitute for House Bill 46, on the regular order of business.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. House Bill 46 is the Texas Capacity Use Program, or better known as TCUP. House Bill 46 will do several things. It will add an additional 9 licenses, making a total of 12 licenses by amendment. It also increased dosage from 10 milligrams from the current to 10 milligrams per dosage per uses. It allows prescriptions up to a maximum of 90 days and a maximum of 4 refills. I do have several floor amendments that will make those changes known, as well as a few other things. We did add effectively 2 different eligible conditions for TCUP. First one being terminal or hospice, or people that are terminal or people that are on hospice. And secondly, we did expand it to include chronic pain as described by Texas Medical Board. So that is the basic changes to the TCUP program as it came over from the House. It is a significant expansion from the existing TCUP, or Texas Compassionate Use Program. So with that, I move to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute House Bill 46.
Senator Menendez, what purpose?
Questions of the author, Mr. President?
Do you yield?
I yield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Chairman Perry. First of all, Chairman Perry, thank you for carrying this bill, and I want to thank you and the President for the hard work on the expansion of the TCUP bill. Some folks think it's just an expansion in terms of the operations, because I think the number of licenses have gone to 12. Is that what you laid out?
With the amendment, it'll go from the current 3 to additional 9, making 12 total licenses, plus satellite offices that were not available before for each of those 9 locations. So hopefully across the state, the idea is you will have access by distribution centers in those regions. So it should be deployed regionally, should hopefully get those up and running pretty quick. We've got 3 existing, so get those satellite offices, and then the other 9 offices should be up and running within a year.
So those 12, are those 12 operators different operators, or how many operators? Because I'm just curious about competition, because one of the complaints has been the cost of the product. And as you well know, you've worked hard to get rid of the products that we don't know what's in them, and replace them with these products that are going to be medically available, organically grown. You know, we know exactly where they're coming from. They're grown here in Texas. People have observed them. They're under close watch, and so that whether it's a patient that's taking it for PTSD or for MS or chronic, some chronic pain, that they'll know what they're getting. They're not going to have the fear of possibly having some other products they're not looking to get.
But you hit the nail on the head. It's quality control.
Yeah.
Quality control and control of a intoxicating or psychotropic substance, right? So it's no different than any other drug in that respect. So having those 9, we believe that will expand enough manufacturing and distribution to get it out to where it needs to be.
So that should help with the pricing.
It should, supply and demand. You increase the supply, it should lower the cost. And the new distribution centers under those satellites, because currently a large part of the cost of delivery of the medical cannabis was the actual distribution point. This will alleviate a lot of the cost, because they'll be able to store it in those locations and be able to distribute it. Right now, currently, if you need it and you live in Lubbock, the manufacturer / retailer, if you will, has to bring it to you from Austin.
Yep.
And if you're not there to pick it up, you get to take it back. So that's a large part of the cost of this product, is just getting it to the persons that are needing it.
Makes a lot of sense. One of the other concerns is that people who are dealing with chronic pain, they're concerned that it's been too difficult to either qualify or to get it. And so you've told me that chronic pain now is the definition. Which is the definition you said it was going to be used?
So the chronic pain definition in here, because we had to have kind of a stake in the ground. What is chronic pain according to the medical industry? And I got multiple versions. They all centered around a 90-day window where you had a pain you couldn't get rid of. So the distinction is acute pain versus chronic, right?
Right.
Acute is if I smash my finger with a hammer, that's pretty acute,
Right.
but it's not going to last 90 days.
Right.
The acute is something that normal practices can't alleviate the pain for more than 90 days. So in the medical board's definition, they had it litigated, board rules, a lot of things that finally came up with a definition that basically says if you have had an opioid prescribed anywhere in your past for an affliction that's still giving you chronic pain of more than 90 days, then you would be eligible to come into the program. And it lists a whole lot of things there that are acute. And it says if this didn't fix your acutes,
Right.
but you had an event that you continually have pain after that, and you know, I use it now, maybe my knee surgery in the 90s, really painful. I don't know what they gave me. I think they did give me some opiate or morphine or something for a while.
Right.
But that's 2 days, right? So that was acute for those 2 days. But at that point, I had been prescribed some type of an opiate. I would be eligible to use it if my knee was chronic pain today.
Well, that's the good news because you read it at first, it seems as if because it talks about a prescription for narcotics or opioids, that maybe we were saying you had to take and we don't want to force anyone to take narcotics. As a matter of fact, we're trying to help people, keep them from taking narcotics, from getting addicted, from possibly overdosing. And so you are telling me, and I've spoken to a different doctor as well, that guarantee me that this definition will not force anybody in order to qualify for the TCUP to have to take any opioids or narcotics first.
Correct. It's based on the theory that if you've had an opioid prescribed in the past,
Yes.
then you must have had extremely painful chronic type pain instance.
Right.
And if that affliction still afflicts you today, you would qualify because you had been prescribed an opiate. Theory is when you get an opiate, that's the highest level of pain you can get in our bodies, right? That's the only medical science they have. So the medical board threaded that needle. We're using their definitions. That's their standard. If that standard changes in the future for better things known today that are known tomorrow that we don't, it will reflect those changes. But we didn't have this legislative definition. There's already a medical definition, and we've tied it to that.
Well, I really appreciate it because the two of those combine, the 12 locations with the satellites, being able to store on site with the
10 milligrams.
10 milligrams.
10 milligrams dose.
All of these things together do signify a true expansion, in particular the chronic pain definition, because at the end of the day, we're trying to make sure that people have a product that they know is safe and that will actually be used directed by a physician to help them with pain. I don't know if you're aware of this, but I have been working on medical cannabis legislation since probably 2017. And I have a lot of reasons for that, but I won't bore y'all with them tonight. But I want to thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Charles Perry, for answering my question.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Gutierrez, what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the gentleman yield for a few questions?
You yield.
I will.
Senator Perry, thank you for your time. Thank you, Mr. President, for your work on this. I know you were surprised with my early position on this, that we were on the same page, knowing that I have been for a regulated recreational, regulated medicinal, but I want to thank you for your work, and I'm going to get to why. Senator Perry, we for years had created this TCUP program. Is that not correct?
That is correct. I think it's 215, I believe.
And I want to apologize, Senator Perry and Mr. President. I think that we need to have this discussion so that people out in the public know why we needed to do this and spell this out in a real way. When you laid out your bill on SB3, you were very clear about it, but I want to just break this down. We created TCUP some time ago, and year after year we have opened a platform that was a regulated medical platform, correct?
That's correct. It began in 2015, and since its inception, it began as an epilepsy. Those that remember, there was, I believe it was Charlotte's Web, a girl named Charlotte out of Colorado that was having seizures every 15 minutes of the day. and they were able to strike a balance with some cannabinoid stuff that she stopped having seizures. She lived a very productive life. She got COVID, unfortunately, and passed away, but that stopped her seizures, and that's where this whole cannabinoid stuff started up, but it started with epilepsy. Since then, we've added seizure disorders, multiple sclerosis, spasticity, lateral sclerosis, autism, cancer, incurable neurodegenerative disease, post-traumatic stress disorder, medical condition that is under for a research program. Now we've got terminal and hospice, and we've also got chronic pain per the Texas Medical Board's description.
That story about that little girl, Senator Perry, led me to investigate cannabis many, many years ago. There was a woman named Michelle Walker, whose husband was in the military in Corpus Christi, and their son was having 3,000 seizures a month. I then created a documentary called LegalizeTexas.com as I continued to investigate what this did for people like that and for veterans.
Mr. President, too much chatter. I can't.
Members, Senator Perry can't hear. He can't hear.
Too much
Can we
background.
cut down all conversation, please, on the floor?
It's important.
Senator Swertner, Senator Creighton, they can't hear. There's just too many pockets of conversations going on. Thank you.
This is important because then we went off and created this other platform, another pathway, when we legalized hemp. And you saw those evils of that.
Yeah.
Why don't you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, let's speak a little bit about that. I didn't create another platform for THC. I created, per the Farm Agricultural Code, a market for hemp production that was meant to build construction products, other materials, clothing. It was a universal answer to a lot of the things we find that we need in construction. It was very tight. It was an agricultural bill only. It was 0.3% THC is the limit in it. The plant, it regulated the plant. It put production parameters around what that plant could do or look like. From that, in the hearings, when I was laying out the 2019 agricultural bill, I reminded people that if it gets wonky as it did, and they do silly stuff that they did that has caused irreparable harm to many people, we would close it down. They didn't believe me. 21, I filed a bill to close them down. 23, I filed a bill to close them down. We are now successful of closing them down. But let's be clear, the agricultural bill did not legalize the production of THC products through synthesized Delta 8, Delta 10, pick the flavor, the flower, etc. So it took what was a good thing and has ruined the agriculture sector. We thought we'd have a robust agriculture sector building houses out of hemp. What we got is a consumable market that really just took it and ran with it in a way that was not good for people, and they ruined the hemp market. There's 174 acres of hemp production in Texas today for agriculture, and that's what they did to it, and that's what I told them they were doing to it. You're ruining the ag market because you're mixed up with all these consumables. That said, Senate Bill 3 left CBD and CBG on the shelves. That is beneficial. That helps you sleep, it helps inflammatory, it is things that are not intoxicating, not psychotropic. So we didn't wipe away the things that we said you could do. They just got really greedy and a lot of money in selling very, very dangerous stuff. And that's why we had 3. This is a follow-up to expand the legitimate use under doctor prescribed so that everybody knows what they're getting. It's very quality controlled. We're expanding the locations so the supply should increase to where the cost goes down. We're changing the distribution so where the cost will go down. So we have answered what we believe the market needs as far as people seeking use of it. But anytime someone says we expanded THC in that consumable market with 219 Ag Bill, that's just blatantly false.
That's right. So, and you and I might, the end goal of what we want might be different. I might want a regulated medical or a regulated recreational use, but at the end of the day, that first word is important, regulated. What we got in the second pathway, as you just suggested earlier, was a deregulated, recreational, synthetic, maybe, THC, maybe, CBD, maybe, aluminum, other metals, where an 18-year-old kid, hell, a 16-year-old kid could go into the 7-Eleven and pick up a vape pen with no regulation whatsoever. And I didn't want that, and you didn't want that, and I dare say nobody in this room wanted that. Is that fair?
That's correct. And those products, psychosis, paranoia, schizophrenia, in short order with addictions to follow. It has ruined many, many lives.
And so we're going back to the first path today, which is a regulated medical platform. And maybe one day we get to where I want to be, but that first word is so important, because at the end of the day, it's still a drug. And for anybody on the other side of the building or over here that has any qualms about this, we have to regulate drugs. And there's no damn way in the world that we should let some little kid go in and buy. And so that's why the president and you and many others in this room sought to do what we're doing. Now I want to switch to what we're doing.
Okay.
If you go see that documentary, you'll see a guy named David Bass. I don't know if you've ever met him. I think the president's met him. David Bass is an Army veteran, captain. He looks like a guy out of Duck Dynasty. He's my friend, and I love him.
I know him well.
And you know David well. And when I did that documentary, there was no teacup. And David was one of the first patients on teacup. And he'll tell you, well, first off, his story was this. He went to Iraq. The VA put him on opioids. They got him hooked on opioids. They ruined his life. And the only relief he was able to find was illegal cannabis. And then we created TCUP. And David swears by TCUP. And he was one of not hundreds, but thousands of veterans that were hooked on opioids by the VA. And they found relief in cannabis. And that's why we created it. And David is the biggest success story that I've ever seen on this issue, because he leads a life now where he's not constrained. Cannabis can be a very good medicinal product when done in the right way under doctor regulation and so on. But I urge people to understand what we're doing today and the vitalness of what we're doing today. There's no way in the world that we should be letting little kids have access to this stuff. Senator, Chairman, the last thing I want to talk about, you covered this very quickly with Senator Menendez, and I want to just be just as expeditious about it. Chronic pain, the expansion into chronic pain, should get just about every veteran on disability, likely, you and I aren't doctors, but likely every veteran should be able to get in to TCUP. Is that a fair anecdotal statement we could make?
I would say it's a fair anecdotal. I think chronic pain is a really wide berth, but I do think it captures the bulk of market, veteran and non, that show that they have a pain that has lasted more than 90 days, and it's not an acute issue, it's just constant. So in that medical board definition, it's pretty clear what it isn't. It also says what it is. So I don't think we have to wonder what we were thinking. The TMB's already done that for us.
And here's the part where you and I will differ. I hope that every state that has done recreational, regulated cannabis has only seen a 1% uptick in use. And they've created a product where you go into a store, you show your ID, you got to be 21, everything is weighed, everything is measured. If you go into that same documentary, you'll see me in a lab in Colorado, and you'll see the most incredible setup you've ever seen. When something gets dropped on the floor, they don't throw it away. They have to go weigh it. Then they have to put it in a special incinerator and destroy it. Everything is tagged and labeled appropriately. It is the most incredible thing you've ever seen, and we're starting to do that. We did that with TCUP. One day we might get to that other phase, but right now we're going to save some kids' lives. We're doing this the right way because we don't know what ingredients they're putting in this. So I think that this is an incredible bill. I think the expansion of TCUP is incredible. I appreciate everything you've done and your efforts on this, but I think that the public really needs to know. I read an article this morning about some farmers that were very upset. They need to understand that what happened was never our intent. You called it, and many other of us called it. And one day maybe we'll get where they want to be, but right now, we're going to create we're going to expand a regulated medical market, and that's it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Secretary will call the roll on suspension. Any objection? Hearing none. The rules are suspended. Chair lays out. Committee substitute for House Bill 46. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute House Bill 46 relating to the medical use of low THC cannabis. You're going to be a yes on the bill.
Following amendment, Secretary, read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 1 by Perry.
Senator Perry, on your amendment.
Yeah, Mr. President and members, we wanted to kind of know who's owning these companies to the best of our ability. So what this amendment does is it says more than 10% of a dispensing organization, if owned by a publicly traded or private held corporation, would want to know those folks are getting fingerprinted, or a governing officer, or as those defined in Business Code 1002 Business Code, which is basically partners that are limited liability companies, sole proprietors, et cetera. So we just want to know who are owning these companies by fingerprinting them.
Any objection? Hearing none. Amendment is adopted. Following amendment. Secretary, read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 2 by Perry.
Senator Perry, on your amendment.
This is the one I spoke to earlier, members. We currently have 3 licensures in Texas. Actually, one of them is only really actively working, but in this amendment, we're going from 3 to 12, so an additional 9 locations or 9 licensures will be made available.
Any objection? Hearing none. Amendment is adopted. The following amendment. Secretary will read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 3 by Perry.
Senator Perry.
Yeah, members, this one is just saying that basically we should give preference to Texas companies for the most part, but not required to have them all as a principal base of Texas. Comparative application, evaluation application, initial licenses dispensing under this. So basically we're trying to focus, if we, as much as possible, getting those 12 licensures in place. We've got 3, the plus 9 would be Texas-based if possible.
Any objection? Hearing none? Oh, Senator Menendez, forgive
Thank you,
me.
Mr.
Hold on.
President. No, not an objection, a question on the amendment.
Do you yield? Do you
I
yield,
yield.
Senator?
So, thank you, Senator Perry. Does this have to do with the applicants? Because I was concerned that you and I had a conversation that over 100 people had applied. Some are, leasing space and all of these things. And so are you touching on who gets to the ability to go into the system? We're not starting over, are we?
No, so I have an amendment number 6 that clarifies 3 of the additional 6 will be from the existing applicants.
Okay.
The other 3, subject to DPS. They may look at the 150 and they can go there. I think they're going to need to just from time.
Right.
I think if I was smart, I'd look at the 150 and not take another 10,000 applications in and have to go through them. But we're not restricting all of them because 3 out of the existing 150 with the last 3 being at the discretion of the DPS. So I think you'll see the bulk of them come out of that just by necessity, timing of going through them.
Yeah.
But we opened it up after the first 3 are picked by DPS from the existing applicants.
I have questions about the timing of the additional licenses, but I'll reserve those for that amendment. Thank you.
And but that's what it does. It's going to say you get 3 out of the first pool that's already existing, you open it up, but you can still take the next 3 from that original pool.
This is just a sort of a preferential treatment on
Right.
licenses.
This is Texas-based companies if possible.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Any objection? Hearing none? Amendment is adopted. Secretary, read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 4 by Perry.
You're recognized on your amendment.
Members, this is the chronic pain description per the Texas Medical Board, so we're defining what chronic pain is and adding it into the eligible issues or eligible diseases or afflictions. But that is straight out from the Medical Board today.
Any objection? Hearing none, amendment is adopted. The following amendment. Secretary, read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 5 by Perry.
Members, this was an amendment requested by the governor's office to make sure that they don't have to prescribe a full 90-day. They can prescribe up to. So they go up to a 90, but they don't have to go up to the full 90. So it gives the flexibility from 1 day to 90 days. It's just clarifying that's a possible.
Senator Menendez?
Quick question, Mr. President. I
yield.
Thank you. This is an important amendment because originally when you had 90 days, it read as if you had to get the full 90 days, could be very expensive. And we all know insurance won't cover this, so people would have to come out of pocket. So now you can provide 3 refills up to 90-day supply, so someone could come in and say, look, I can only afford a month's supply.
Right.
All right, thank you.
And any other doctor controls that. If you need it reduced or you don't need it, then that process is working. The good thing about this is doctors are going to be engaged in your medical care.
Yes.
And we're not going to self-medicate through whatever vehicle, be it the gas station,
Right.
the grocery store. And so this is going to be the appropriate use for medical treatment going forward.
But this amendment addresses one of the issues that we can't have a program. It won't really be accessible unless it's also somewhat affordable.
Right.
So it's a good amendment. Thank you for the amendment. Thank you, Mr.
Any objection? Hearing none, amendment is adopted. The following amendment. Secretary, read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 6 by Perry.
Members, this is the amendment I spoke to a while ago. Currently, there's about 150 applications that were put in place in 23, and then applications were closed. Though we're still setting at DPS, and there has been significant investment and some work done on those 150, whether they still exist or want to be in there, we believe it's only right that those get a look, or a different look, if you will, without going to a new market. So what this amendment does, it says it requires 3 of the next 9 or the next 6 applicants to be licensed by October 1 or 25. So that gives the DPS the opportunity to go to that list, look at them, and try to find 3 out of that by October 1, 25, and then the remaining, if they open it up and find people they want to go to, they've got till April of 26. Again, I think just the volume of new applicants to expect it would be difficult to go through. I don't want to put this on DPS, they're required, but I think they'll see the logic if they can get their 6 and the existing applicants, they probably will.
Senator Menendez?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, if the author would yield that.
I yield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator. Yes, I had a similar amendment. I was concerned about how long it would take DPS to add. If we're really talking about an expansion, it won't mean anything unless it happens pretty quickly. So I really like the October 1st for the next three.
Yeah, so assuming the other 2 that are kind of inactive right now get back in, and they're required to or they lose their license. If the 2 that are kind of dormant don't get back in the game, they'll be out, so that'll open up 2 new slots. But assuming those 3 current providers get going, they find the other 3, I would envision the current 3 would have their satellite locations moving pretty quick, right? They're already working. So the next 3 that come in by October 1, so we'd have satellite locations when they're being approved in that process. So hopefully we'll get this thing rolling as soon as possible. But having the original 3 with new satellites, the other 3 new ones out of that list by October 1, 25, that's pretty short. Yeah. I mean, between now and October 1.
Is the bill going to allow for them to have on-site storage, not like they do now?
That's right. That's
okay.
right.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Any objection? The amendment is adopted. The following amendment. Obviously, this was a bill built on amendments. Secretary, read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 7 by Perry.
Senator Craig.
Senator Perry on your amendment.
Yeah, Mr. President and members, this was another governor's suggestion. They took the adopt by October 1 and said propose because that is a pretty short order. We know what the rules are probably going to be from existing applicants and what we were in place. Probably aren't going to require a lot of tweak, but we didn't want to box them into the point that they may not make that deadline and then we have a challenge.
Senator Menendez.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Quick question. What is the part of down here at the bottom? The Executive Commissioner of the Health and Human Services shall propose. So this is actually looks like an improvement. You're adding Health and Human Services to the operations of the plan. Is that
correct?
Yeah, that's a definite improvement. Because I mean, I feel like DPS has enough on its hands and their enforcement.
HHSC is already a licensure in so many levels that does some of this. Yeah. You've got DISHs already involved in actually some of the retail side of these conversations. So we'll have a holistic look going forward.
That's a good improvement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Amendment is adopted. You are recognized, Senator Perry, to
move past third reading. Any
objection? Hearing none. You're recognized. Bill passed the third reading. You're recognized to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So moved.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Board.
31 ayes, no nays. The rule is suspended. Chair lays out third reading and final passage. Committee substitute for House Bill 46. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute House Bill 46 relating to the medical use of low THC cannabis.
Move final passage.
I think we have a few people who want to speak on final. Senator Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief, Mr. President. But I think that this is important. Again, we need to reiterate it because we got so many calls. This body has always made a commitment to our veterans. When I tell you the names of these veterans, it's because they've allowed me to utilize their names. When they went into the field of battle in Iraq and Afghanistan, the VA's only solution for them was opioids. Brian Ortega was in the U.S. Army. He went to Iraq and Afghanistan. He's on 100% disability. I knew the medication I was on was going to kill me. I felt like a slave to it. He was given hydrocodone along with other opioids. He dreaded waking up in the morning. He moved to Colorado to save his own life. Crystal Beatty, U.S. Army specialist as well as the Air Force. Twice, she joined 2 different branches of service of government. Moved to Colorado to save her life off of the opioids that the VA put her on. Major David Bass, U.S. Army veteran that many of us know. a great hero, went to Iraq, came back, and was placed on opioids. Saved his life through the consumption of cannabis, and now is one of the leading proponents of TCUP, a great program. That is our commitment to our veterans. Grant Weidman, in a 14-day span, he had only 12 hours of sleep because of the opioids and the hydrocodone he had been put on. Michelle Walker had to take her little boy to Colorado to save his life, where he was prescribed cannabis oil. We still need to get there so that Michelle Walker and her veteran husband didn't have to leave Texas, so that they can come back to visit their relatives. And we'll get there. We'll do what's right to help people. But we also have a commitment to our kids. And our kids, our commitment to our children is to keep them safe from a narcotic that they shouldn't do probably until they're 25 if they chose to do it in a regulated market or in a medical setting if needed. And reasonable minds will differ on this floor. But no way and under no certain terms did we ever intend for some kid to go to the convenience store and pick up a vape pen. Not anyone in this building ever, not once, wanted what happened to happen in Texas. And so you had to grab the reins of a pretty strong horse, of an industry that had gone down the road, unfettered and unregulated. And we all had to do that. And we got a lot of grief for it. But we never authorized it in the first place. Now maybe one day we'll get to where I want to be, or maybe we'll stay where we are. But the most important term there is that we will regulate this industry in a right way so that we can continue to help the commitment that we have to our veterans, because there will be other battles and there will be other theaters of war, and we'll get there. And when they come home, we'll give them a product that is less addictive than the hydrocodone, that doesn't cause them to have suicidal tendencies, that doesn't have them walking around like zombies, that frees them of their pain under a regulated setting. But we will continue the commitment to our children. And that's why this bill is so important. And Senator Perry, I appreciate all the work that you've done. I want people out there to know the truth about how we got here, where we've been, and where we're going. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Gutierrez. I firmly believe if the industries that were out there doing what they were doing on the retail market had invested the resources into this technology, I firmly believe there are benefits yet not known. But until they get out of the short-term gain that creates tons of pain, this product's never going to move forward in the market. But it has potential, but it needs to be followed the path of all of our drugs and pharmaceuticals that go through. Love them or hate them, we have a system that puts good drugs on the market for people to use. And if they would just focus on that, they'd be making more money long-term, but it's all about short-term gain. And that's what's wrong with our country. It's about the buck today, no worrying what the problem is. I want to say thank you for Mr. President.
You have one more speaker. Okay. Senator Menendez,
okay.
You recognize on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank also our president, because he's been working on this personally, individually, and I reminded him this morning about a conversation when he called me about this that we'd had in 2015, our first terms, his as lieutenant governor, mine as a senator, and he asked me about what was one of my priorities, what did I want to work on, and I mentioned medical cannabis. And the reason that I did is because so many times when we talk about the conditions that patients can qualify for our TCUP, whether it's epilepsy, a seizure disorder, or multiple sclerosis, spasticity, ALS, autism, cancer, PTSD, that a lot of these situations are not theoretical. They're lived experiences. And, you know, I haven't asked for permission, so I'm not going to share the name, but this person in particular has had 2 back fusions, has hardware in her back, has had fentanyl patches prescribed by a doctor, that if you touch that fentanyl patch for a couple of seconds, you feel woozy. You feel like you might pass out. Dilaudid, hydromorphone. And all of these narcotics create all sorts of havoc with your body. It's no wonder that we heard from Senator Gutierrez that these veterans wanted to take their lives because you can't think straight. Sometimes you don't have an appetite. When you do eat, your body doesn't process your food correctly. And this program, in talking to a very respected pain specialist in San Antonio, I said to him, I said, hey, how are the patients doing? He says, we're having a shortage of medicines. The pharmacies are all giving them trouble about prior authorizations. They can't get what they need. And if you saw his practice, most of the people in the room were senior citizens, were elderly. And he said, you know, if y'all gave us access to cannabis, I could get most of my patients off narcotics, and they'd have a better quality of life. I texted with him today. When I texted you, we were talking about the definition of chronic pain. And he said in his messages, you do have to put something in there so that people don't abuse it, and I think you've got the definition. I have advocated for the last 10 years for a medical cannabis program, you know, and I said this to the president. I said, this is the only medical therapy where we as legislators, for some reason, think that we know more than the doctors. Dr. Schwartner went to school for a long time. Dr. Campbell went to school for a long time. Dr. Schwartner is a pharmacist in addition to being a surgeon. They know how drugs interact. They know what's prescribed, and they know for a fact that narcotics are 100 times worse for us than cannabis. So when we pass this bill, and this bill goes on, and I hope it gets signed by the governor, and if these folks, and if DPS takes this seriously and we expand it so that every health region in the state actually has this, and that's one of the amendments I wanted to have that I think you covered, though, that before we let these dispensaries put 2 or 3 in Dallas or Houston or San Antonio, that every health region has to have one. Because every part of Texas has veterans, has elderly, has people who are hurting. And it wouldn't be right that they just go to the biggest markets. At the end of the day, you know, because this is really, when done right, it's just another medical therapy. It should be a doctor, the patient, and a pharmaceutical outlet. But fine, we're going to do it this way. This is fine. Let's move forward. Thank you for the amendments you brought forward. I had 5 of them, and I had one, and I know Senator Gutierrez had one too that would have been a little more expansive, but we want to make sure that this works for everybody. At the end of the day, public policy needs to be what's in the best interest of all. And at the end of the day, they'll know what they're getting, because a lot of our constituents have been self-medicating. And for years, people have self-medicated with alcohol, with nicotine, and now with THC. And so hopefully, if this gets up and running quickly, people will have an opportunity to have a benefit or something that actually works, so that in the very real example I was giving y'all, when that person was able to take medical cannabis instead of narcotics, that person was able to tell me, I don't have pain, and I can think straight. So because they can actually formulate these things to where it's not so much THC that you're not getting stoned. And just for everybody here, if you're worried about people getting stoned, those folks are going to do it with or without a law. They don't care about what law we pass. What we're doing by keeping people from having a law that they can operate, we're keeping those people who respect the law. So thank you. I look forward to voting for this and co-sponsoring this legislation. And Mr. President, thank you for creating a real expansion. I know you've been hesitant. I know you've had concerns. I know you don't want Texas to ever be California, and it won't. Because Texans are not, they're different. And we're still here, and we get to make the rules. And at the end of the day, what we're just trying to do is help people live without pain. And every pain specialist will say the best thing to treat nerve pain, neuropathy, neuropathic pain is cannabis, THC. And so I want to just say thank you. It's a good day. It's a good night. It's been a rough session, but this is something that I personally feel very good about, and I want to say thank you.
Well, thank you, Senator. And Senator Gutierrez and Menendez, you both worked with us together today. I appreciate Chairman Oliverson over there with his help on this, and Senator Perry, of course. You know, what we've done, members, this session, and maybe we didn't see it when we came in, but we are eradicating bad actors who are poisoning our community, children and adults, and making a massive profit off the backs of people in pain and people who have gotten hooked on THC and some very terrible outcomes. And we've wiped them out, and now we're building the biggest compassionate use program probably launch in the country, because it really is a launch, because we only have one operator right now, and his business went down by 90% because of the illegal or questionable products on the street. So it's a good 1-2 combination, and I thank everybody for working together and making this
Mr. President,
work.
it takes a leader to get somewhere, and you were very cautiously and responsibly the last few years as we expanded eligible afflictions, and with the mess that was created from the other groups, it forced our hand, and you responded appropriately, and I appreciate that. And I think most people, you can't please everybody, but I think the majority of people that need and deserve the treatment are going to have access for it. It's, you know, I think we did the right thing here tonight.
In a safe, regulated way for
So
people in
with that, I
treatment.
move final pass to committee substitute House Bill 46.
Secretary, call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt.
31 ayes and no nays. Bill is finally passed. Thank you, Senator, for all your work on this.